Hey guys, I'm Angie Designs and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'm going to show you how I took a pair of boots that looked like this and turned them into this. Alright, so it is currently evening time and I'm going to start on my boots. So right off the bat, let's just take a quick look at them. They are a base pair of boots with a decent little heel on them, decent amount of actual platform considering they're Ardene boot, Ardene being an accessories company here in Canada. Already off the bat, I can already tell that they're gonna be too wide, and obviously they are way too long. These are not knee boots that I need, I just need mid-calf area. We'll compare to the artwork over here. So we're gonna do some cutting and some trimming. There is this nice little elastic part at the back too. I don't think we're going to need it because of the zipper and because of the way I'm planning to alter it. I think I can basically just close that up for the most part, which will help with some of that extra volume that's on there, but I'll also take a look and see. Well, I don't know how much I need to take off. This is gonna be a lot of experimenting, I think, and a lot of just like cutting into the darn thing. But I think the first thing to do is to actually like try it on and see where I want the boot to go, like how high do I want it to go, put some markings, put some pinnings, because things like trimming down the zipper, trimming down all of this should be relatively simple, pretty straightforward, famous last words. Okay, so here's a look of it on my leg. As you can see, there's a lot of space here. And when we compare it to the art, which I have the book right here, yeah, it's obviously very much too long. It needs to be around here. So I'm just gonna put a pin there for now. The approximate length that I want. Now to deal with the fit, because I have a very small leg. Like, I won't deny, I know I have a small leg. So I'm going to take some of my clips and I'm going to clip around to see how much I can actually take out of here realistically. So I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to just clip this way just to see how much this realistically takes out if I were to just close up this spot right here. I don't know if it's gonna be enough. All right, so first things first, I'm gonna cut at about the location of my pin right here. So I've got my marking, and I'm gonna go in and measure. Okay, I'm gonna call that 5 inches. I'm gonna cut it at about 4.5, I think. So I'm gonna mark around 4.5 around the whole thing. I'm gonna cut into it. That will give me plenty of room for seam allowance, I believe, and plenty of playroom just in case I accidentally cut it a little wonky. And I also will be cutting into the zipper with this. So I'm not using fabric scissors. I'm gonna use my kitchen scissors because again, this is very plasticky and this is, it's a plastic and metal, I think, in some areas. So yeah, don't use your fabric scissors for this kind of thing. And then I'm gonna figure out what I wanna do about it. I definitely need to get rid of this for sure. So this is gonna be an experiment. Trust me, this is why this is not a tutorial, because I am learning along with you guys. Shoe alteration can be very fun, but it can be a lot of work. So let's do this. So interesting discovery here. It is definitely lined, which will make things a little bit easier to deal with. So there's this lining on one side and then the fabric on the other. So I will be able to eventually just tuck them in after a little bit of work here. So I'm gonna repeat the same on the other side, but already, does it ever look a lot more like the boot we need to work towards? So already going well. So let's repeat it with the other one and then I'll check back in real quick. So I made a boo-boo already. I cut the zipper wrong. So the zipper pull fell off of this side and it's about to fall off this side. So luckily it seems the detail on this costume, the buttons that go over to close this boot, happen to be on the inside, it looks like. I'm gonna take a double check on that, but it seems, I always thought the detail on the outside, but it looks like it goes onto the inside, or it's double-sided. Either way, it is designed to be a button closure, so we're gonna have a faux button closure. We're gonna see how that works out, but anyway, the zipper pull has to come off, and the zippers have to come out. So I'm about to do a ton of seam ripping, basically. We're taking the zipper out. I'm probably gonna turn that into some form of a seam, and I'm also gonna start tearing away at this, and then one of these two will become the actual closure for this. I guess that means it's time for me to get started on a ton of seam ripping because I have zippers to remove and I gotta figure out what I want to do here. Let's get to work. Okay, so things are all seam ripped And now I've got things like, it looks a little crazy right now. My first goal is actually gonna be to close out the back. So that's where that fitting issue was. I'm able to take a little bit out here as well, but before I sew out the back, this is all going to be done by hand. But I can do the lining by machine. So I'm going to do the lining by machine. So what I have pinned here right now is that back seam where the elastic piece was, where this thing was. I have that all pinned out, and now I'm just gonna sew it back closed on both shoes, and then I'm gonna sew up that back seam. And that will deal with the biggest problem, because I mean, like right now we've got this big old floppy problem. So I'm just gonna close that off first and foremost, and then I'm gonna deal with everything else afterwards. But yeah, close that off, and then we're gonna hand stitch. I'll talk more about the hand stitching in a little bit. All right, so we're now at the next day, and I have just my absolutely gutted boot. It's so funny, like I did not expect this to be as much work as it was going to be, because of course I'm removing stuff, I'm putting stuff back in anyway. So here, it's floppy everywhere. So I have this all sewn up, and now I've got to take the back and sew it with a ladder stitch. So to do this is essentially a parallel stitch that I do on either side, and I hook it by hand slowly but surely. And I'm going to make this very, very strong. So I'm going to have to make these pretty small stitches in order for this to work really well. So I'm gonna ladder stitch all the way up the back. I am having to use some very thick thread to make this work, because of course there will be some pressure and this will want to split a little bit until it gets used to being together. So I have to start the ladder stitch all the way towards the bottom. So yeah. Okay, so my back seam is now all sewn up again on both pairs of boots, and it's starting to look more like a boot again. So in order to actually get this on my foot and have this open, I need to put elastic back there. So I'm going to take the elastic that I cut out of the back here, and we're going to put it up here up until the ankle. If I were to just close this, I would never get my foot back in there ever again. So I need to put the elastic back in, but just right here, ankle height. So essentially I'm going to slip it in, and I'm going to pin it down, and I'm going to back stitch it into place by hand. Because again, I cannot put this into a sewing machine. A lot of this is going to be hand sewing. So I'm going to slip it in, I'm going to cut down the piece, and I'm going to just slip it inside here. And then we'll see where we go to from there. I'm going to do this on both shoes, or both boots, and that will allow me to have a solid boot that I can get my foot in and out of. Then I can deal with the lining and such afterwards, because the lining definitely needs to be sewn down as well. Again, this is a lot of experimentation on my end. I am not exactly a professional at reconstructing boots. I definitely don't have the equipment for it. That's why I'm doing all of this work by hand. But it's been enjoyable so far. I'm having to wear gloves in order to not hurt my hand as I go, because this is a lot thicker to work through than fabric, especially when I've been using such lightweight fabrics as of late. Both boots now have elastic installed. I can get my foot in and out of both of these. The cats are chasing each other. So now I just need to sew down the lining along this line, because it's kind of just flopping all over the place. So basically, very similar to what I just did with the elastic, I'm gonna place the lining down, and I'm going to just back stitch it into place, which will also reinforce this elastic. So I'm just gonna go along the little lines that are already there and stitch it down by hand with a back stitch. The back stitch, it takes a little bit of time. I did figure out a way to speed it up a little bit, but it's worth it because it's a nice and strong stitch, and considering this is on my foot and I'll be moving around a lot, this is definitely what I need to do in order to finish this off. Kind of repeat the same thing from before, just instead this time we're sewing down the comfortable lining. All right, so I now have the side of the boot all nice and finished. So the lining is now cooperating, and you know, it's starting to look like a finished boot again, as opposed to the mess of boot guts that I had earlier. But before I consider the boot base finished, I do need to hem the top. So that's gonna be basically the same exact thing all over again, but this time I'm not back stitching for the sake of structure. I'm just gonna fold over the edge once and then top stitch this all down just by hand. Could probably do it by machine, but I'm just gonna do a regular top stitch. I don't even think I'm gonna do a back stitch. I think I'm just gonna do a standard even stitch just to keep it down and keep it nice and clean. So I don't want to put this through my machine. This would still be quite difficult to get in there, and also it would definitely clog up the machine a little bit, because this stuff is not the greatest quality, but it's working quite well. So we're just going to hand stitch this all down, and then the boot base will be done, and then I can start actually like modifying it to look like the boot from the artwork. My base boots are now actually full wearable boots. They have a closure, I can wear them, I can walk around in them. I'm honestly really happy with how they're looking. Like they look, you can hardly tell that I've completely gutted them and put them all back together, which is fantastic and obviously was kind of the goal here. So now that I'm at the point that I've modified them so heavily, now I'm gonna actually add on the details that make it the actual boots from the artwork. Now on the artwork, she has this little white piece that kind of goes over the top, which is actually implied to be the actual closure. But in my case, the hook and eyes that I put on the side here are a little easier and faster to get into than buttoning up, especially with the kind of fabric I'm planning on using. So what I've gone ahead and done, I had to do it off camera because it was a little trickier to do and the angles were kind of weird, but I kind of draped a pattern of sorts to look like the pieces that I need to make in order to make the covering piece. So we have this one right here, which kind of goes over the top. And then the bottom one, which goes right here. So I have this really nice suede fabric that I'm now going to cut out, trace out this pattern onto 4 times because I need 2 for each boot. So that's 4 pieces. And then I'm gonna start to stitch them together to make that into one piece that will eventually go onto the boots. So what I've got to do is cut out the pieces, and then I have to put the 2 pieces together, stitch them together, and then I have to take one piece to another and sandwich them together, sew out around the shape and the scallops, because those scallops need to be in there, and then I have to pull it all inside out and press it nice and flat. Essentially, I'm making this piece that will just eventually just sit on top of the boot, and then I'll figure out how exactly I want to attach it later, but first I have to make this into an actual piece. I know for a fact that the curvature of the bottom piece is going to make things a little tricky, but that's okay, because I can manage this, I think. So, I'm gonna go ahead and do all of that, and we'll see where I go to from there. Okay, so we now have the little, I don't know, still know what to call these things, but I have them made up and I now have them pinned onto the boot. And honestly, I'm really happy with how it's looking. I've gotten them pressed all nice and flat. The scallops are in place. They're looking very, very cute. So here I'm just gonna take one off real quick just to kind of show you what the piece looks like. So that's what it ended up looking like. This is where the buttons will go. And now I just need to attach them. So for attaching them, the way I'm planning to do this is that there will be an opening next to the opening side. So over here where there's the, on the boot where it opens, I'm planning to have some snaps along the side here on the little, I don't know what that's called. But anyway, it's gonna snap here. That's gonna be the actual opening, while the rest of it gets sewn down. And this side will get reinforced even with the buttons. What I'm going to do first is pin it all into place so it's nice and flat. Make sure they are in like their permanent locations, and then I'm gonna start working away at tacking certain spots down. Once that's done, I can deal with the snaps. So a lot of hand stitching through more of the brown leathery fabric, very fun, not my favorite, but a little bit more of that to do before the whole thing is finished. But I am at the last steps right now, which is fantastic. So I'm just gonna finish up those steps, get this all into place, and then I can worry about the buttons and other finishings. Either way though, the boots are almost finished. I actually really like how this is looking. They're pretty cute. So thank you guys all so much for watching and following along on this little adventure. Boots are definitely a little bit out of my regular comfort zone, so this was definitely an adventure for me. And of course, not necessarily a tutorial because of course I was kind of experimenting with things as I went here as well. A little bit of trial and error, and it ended up working out quite nicely. I'm super happy with the result. They look super cute, they're comfortable, and it did not cost me very much to make these look like this. I know that they're not historically accurate, they definitely aren't. They are still a pair of modern boots in the end of the day, but my Sakizo Kandy Tea is not a historical accurate cosplay. they're comfortable, they have the desired effect, and they look good with the costume, and that's what's important. So I hope you enjoyed coming on this little adventure with me. I sure did enjoy this in the end. There was a lot of hand sewing and my hands hurt a little while after, but it was really enjoyable and I'm really happy with the final product. And speaking of final product, they were the final part of this cosplay. My Sakizo Kandy Tea is officially finished, meaning the next time you see anything from this cosplay, I will hopefully be showing you the full costume reveal. I don't know when exactly I'm going to be doing that. I would like to touch up a few things before I get to that and photo shoot and such, but that will be pretty soon, hopefully. So be sure to like, subscribe, and all that stuff, and stick around for when I finally reveal the full final costume all together. So I guess this means that I will see you in the next video. See you guys later.